Hi guys, Charlie from Monocure 3D. Today we're going to check out this printer from Nova 3D. It is the high resolution 3D printer called the Elfin. It's an MSLA printer. I don't know much about this printer to be honest, but I'm very keen to try it. I've heard great things about it and our resin. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, here we go. We're getting into it. Let's have a look. Oh, you don't see this stuff anymore. The old school foam. I thought this stuff was banned. What is this? That's interesting. A funnel without the end bit. It's not in there. That is literally being cut off. I don't know how it's been cut off, but someone's got scissors or some sort of saw and cut that off. We won't judge the whole printer on that. Let's have a look what else you get. When I got this out, I thought this was actually one of the Anycubic printers because it's a very, very similar packaging, very similar blue, quite similar design. But that's interesting. That's a FEP inside a plastic frame. Now, I have never seen that before. Now, does that mean that I can't just use any FEP in it? We'll have to do a bit of research about that. If that's, I've got to get that every time I need to change the FEP, to me, that's a major problem. Let's hope that's not the case, but that is quite interesting. It comes with a nice guide, which let's hope is in English, which it is. You know what, the whole thing's in English, okay? So that's good. Okay, so this box, this has been opened, maybe by the same person who cut this off. Now let's see if we're lucky enough. Power adapter, USB. Has it got Nova on it? It's got Nova on it. We've got something here, guys, that I've never seen before in a 3D printer. A little spray bottle. Now, is that for your IPA? Probably, that's what they're thinking. You know, I don't mind that, that's not a bad touch. Good idea, guys. Some gloves, more than a pair, and some filters. Now, a couple of the printers, most printers have these, but you know what? These probably aren't real 3M. They say 3M on there. Are they real? I'm not gonna say either way. But they actually seem decent quality. We'll leave that alone. Or you know how much I love a pair of these. These are always really handy. Great for the supports, and also if you're into FDM printing, you know that you use them a fair bit. Extra screws, I'm assuming for the VAT when we get to there, and the Allen keys, a few different sizes there. And a power cord, whoa, with an Australian plug. And I'm pretty sure this printer came direct from China. It's always good to see, and that obviously will go in there when we get to that stage. And again, you know, I love these, the black scraper. You can't go past a plastic scraper. You always need them. After a while, they do get grubby and they do get, you know, a little bit bent and warped, especially if you're using IPA or resin away on them. So just keep them handy, and when one gets a bit mucky, just start again. Let's do my normal trick of putting it down on its side, like I'm a doctor delivering a baby. It's got that foam, not just a little bit of foam, but a lot of foam. Interesting though, I like its shape. You know, it's different, and we always like different. Someone's thought about the design of this a bit, and it stands out. This is a sort of thing straight away I can tell that I'd like to have sitting on my desk at work, you know, or at home. It's a nice color and a nice solid looking, actually that's a really solid looking lid. But guys, at Nova, come on. Where is the handle? This is getting silly now. So I've said it before, you don't want to get these, I mean, this is beautiful. This is a solid, really nice, solid injection molded top. And I don't want to get this full of, you know, covered in resin or covered in resin away. So you really need to put a handle on the top of these. So either 3D print one or go to the hardware store and buy one and just screw it in, and then just use a handle rather than touching the lid the whole time. Impressive looking Z-axis, I have to say. Now this wasn't an expensive printer, but it was around the $500 Australian dollar mark. So it wasn't a lot, but that's a solid looking Z-axis. Impressive looking VAT. I didn't know a lot about this printer. I have to say, just the design of it, it's blown me away a bit. There's a lot of different things here. It's not your standard, bog standard anything. The shape's interesting. Let's hope it can print well. I don't even actually know how to get this build plate off. Oh good, well okay. It just slides off. Wow, I've never seen this before. Looks like a hard molded, probably ABS plastic by the looks of it. And then on the bottom of it is the actual aluminium build plate. I have to say I don't mind that idea. I think that's good. It keeps the lightweight, probably reduces the cost for them. Let's see how it goes longevity wise in and out of the resin, but I'd say it wouldn't be too bad. And I'm guessing by the looks of it that these screws here mean that you could potentially unscrew it and replace this if it ever got damaged or scratched without having to replace the whole thing, which you probably wouldn't want to because this doesn't look like the cheapest part. We'll see how that goes. I'm pretty impressed with that. I'm not sure how it levels. That's the one thing I don't, unless that's part of the leveling, but we'll have to do some reading and find out about that. As I said, it's an interesting shape. It's not just your bog standard square or rectangle printer. They've put the feet on for us, that's nice. But yeah, nice molded plastic bottom. This is all plastic around the outside, but it's solid plastic. You can have a look at the thickness of this. It's solid. It looks like the power button on the front there. And then, just while we're doing this, you've got your Ethernet. That excites me. It's got USB and power connection there and a reset button. I've never seen a reset button. Here, remember I've not seen this printer, so I'm making this up. These, I think, is the way you unlock the VAT. Thank you, Nova. You guys are the first people I've seen to come up with a system, apart from the very expensive Form Labs printers, that has come up with a simple solution not to have to use the old school nut and bolt to put this VAT in place. I've seen one that tried a magnet before. That was the Lotus. That worked okay, but you know, this is clever. It's literally a couple of little, you can see them little tabs on the end here, and they slot into a couple of holes, and you've got these little slides. You just see what that's going to do. All this needs to do is to hold in place so, you know, any sort of suction or pulling up is not going to move the VAT. It needs to stay in position. So I'm lifting that with that in place. So to me, that's a good enough test. That's not going to undo. Super easy to get out and a lot less fiddly. And you know what? You're not going to lose the nuts or whatever. I always like this when companies do this sort of thing. They've put a little bit of protection screen on the FEP. We all know the FEP is delicate. Not one on the underside, but that's okay because it's sitting down like that. And then another one over the screen itself. Nice looking screen. Nice big screen actually. Different for this level of printer. Normally the screens are a little bit smaller. For a low cost printer, they've put a decent sized screen in there. But the build volume, it's as big as the build plate. Whatever that is that's how big and obviously how high it goes. It doesn't look like the tallest printer in the world, but it still looks like you can get a decent print. But I just still can't get over the design. I think the design of it's really nice, and as I've said a few times, I just think it's great that these guys are thinking outside of the box. They've gone with a very different system for the build plate and for the VAT and for the whole design of it. That's three things right there that straight away stand out to me, as this is not just another sort of entry-level resin printer. Anyway, good on you, Nova. Ticked a lot of boxes. Let's hope this thing prints as good as it looks. And just one thing I just want to check. I'm thinking it's going to, because they'd be absolutely mad if they didn't. Of course it does. It fits every which way, which is very, very nice. And plug that in there. The light's on. I'm going to take this plastic off. I call that the grandma plastic, and the reason I call it the grandma plastic is because grandmas sometimes have them on their sofa so they don't get damaged. So here we go, we're going to turn it on now. I'm just going to hit the power button and nothing happens. There you go, it's a hold in. Oh wow! Is that a colour LCD screen with a sort of animation on it? That is highly impressive. Okay, so this is a different looking menu, which is never a bad thing. We always like different. Let's go to the first one, says task. That looks like it's the print menu. So we've got nothing in the USB, so of course there's no files in there. File, that's interesting. That must mean that this has an internal drive of some sort, because I certainly don't have any USB in there. Some of the machines have a Raspberry Pi or similar in them, and they can obviously store files within, and you don't actually need to have an external USB plugged into it. And as well, the fact that it's got the Ethernet port, I would say that you can connect this up and see it on your local network and print directly to it. But we're going to look at the software later and have a look and see if I'm right or not. So yeah, locate file. There's an option there for USB file, which is blank because there's no USB in there. And you can hit cancel and go back. So yeah, local file, USB file. control. The advantage of having the internal microcomputer in there means that you can control some of the settings directly, from this menu itself, which is a good thing to have. You don't have to constantly be going back and forth to the computer. You can do it directly from here. Calibration. I've never seen this one before, but whether or not to save. I'll just cancel that because I don't know what I'm doing. And we'll have a look at the menu for that one. And finally, settings. That says, difficult to do this job, contact our after sales service. Click start to light up the LCD screen. You'll need to replace the LCD screen if it displays dark spots or black spots. So we hit that. Yes, we want to confirm that. I'm going to take this VAT off. Whoa! But you can see there, the light's definitely coming through there, and it's going through a little test. So we can confirm that worked. That's interesting, I've never seen that before. I think that's a good point they make with the screen. Black spots or dark spots on the screen unfortunately means the screen is damaged, and they're what we call dead pixels. So that's an area where the screen's pixels have unfortunately died, and that can be caused by a number of things. Sometimes it just happens, it's just bad luck, but more often than not, it's actually due to poor management of cleaning out your VAT after a print. So best way to explain it, if you had something in here that you can't see, so you're printing with our rapid grey resin and a part of the print happened to be floating around in this that you didn't see, or something, part of the model broke off and you didn't see it, you put that in there, okay, and you think it looks, because on the surface it looks like there's nothing in there, it just looks like resin, and you go, you know what, that print failed, I'm just going to start it again without clearing the VAT. That's not a good thing to do, and the reason is the bill plate on the next print will go down and it'll hit that hard bit of resin that's in there, and you've got to remember this is going down to 50 micron, which is thinner than a human hair, and it's going to crush directly into that screen, and that little pin prick is exactly what's going to damage your pixels. And a damaged screen is very frustrating, because when you get a dead pixel, do you know how you find out? You find out because your print usually has a hole in it. Very, very careful. The number one thing you look after is this screen. Without this screen, you're not printing anymore. It's game over. Second most important thing is this thing. Now these FET films can be replaced. We sell them luckily, and they're not that expensive, but they're expensive enough to be annoying. But the biggest issue with these is the amount of time it takes to replace them. And of course, the third most important thing is the build plate. But these are pretty solid, and I haven't really ever seen many problems with them. But this being plastic, it could fall off the table if I was careless, and it might break. It is solid, but it is still plastic, so be wary of that. And it's something that I've never been concerned with any of the other build plates, because I've never seen a plastic build plate before. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying you need to be a little bit careful of it. I think the next thing we need to do is get in front of the computer and load up the software. Okay, so I'm sat at the computer now. I've plugged the USB in. There are two folders. One is in Chinese, the other is in Chinese, but there's English within Chinese. Now I've actually already downloaded the software, so I won't do it again, but just so you know, that's where you get it from. There's the user guide and a print guide. Actually, there's a little video there too. That might be worth watching at some point, but not now. And there's a test file. So it's interesting, it uses a CWS, which is Creation Workshop. So they've obviously using Creation Workshop software, and they've branded it as their own. First thing we need to do obviously is load a file into it. So I'll open up my demo files, and there is the mono matrix. I've printed so many of them, I can tell straight away which way the resin is headed, or which way it needs to go for it to be properly cured. And let's do what they say and drag that in. Okay. Many vertical planes detected. Automatically rotate an angle to achieve better printing effect. Okay, thank you. I didn't really want to do that, but it's done it anyway. Okay, well, we'll leave it on that angle. If you Creation Workshop or the Nova version 2.4.17 thinks this is the best way for this to be printed. Creation Workshop was one of the early slices that one of the first MSLA printers used. The Duplicator 7 from Wanhao. Looking better, it was very rough. Well, look, I just hit the duplicate button. So now we've got two of them. If we hit that, whoa, that was funky. It just spun them around about 15 times and put them in a position, I guess, so it was optimal on the build plate. But that's good. So there's the support. So we don't need supports on that, so I'm not even going to hit that because I don't know what it's going to do. That's clever. It tells you the volume that it's going to use. So let's hit click to set up. Printer model, the bean. No, we've got the Elfin. Okay, resin type, none of these. these are all their resins. I don't know these resins, so I'm just going to guess here. I'm just going to go with the dental model resin. Layer height, I usually like to print at 0.05 for my tests. Exposure time, 6.5. Let's take that to 7. Bottom layer count, I always like to do 4. Bottom exposure, I think that's a bit low. I'm going to take that up to at least 45. We want this thing to stick. I don't want it not to after 20 minutes. We'll leave that up because that was on there. Lifting speed 100, retract speed 100, that's pretty standard. Stop time. This is always a little bit dubious what the stop time means. We'll leave it at 2 seconds because that's what it was, but it can mean a few different things. But we'll leave it at 2 and just see what happens. We'll hit OK. It says down here, my config, Elfin 0.5, the volume's 6.49 mil, 140 layers, estimated printing time 40 minutes. Wow. That's quite a long time anyway. Time to hit the big tool that looks like a knife, slice, and it's asking me to save it. And I want to call it Elfin Test 1, save. Oh, that's nice. It's got that bar going across. That was quite quick, and we hit OK. So now that is going to be there, and it's a CWS file, and we're going to copy that file, and then I'm going to paste it onto the Nova USB stick. I'll put it in the main directory. It's usually the best place for these sort of things to be found. So now I'm going to eject that and we're going to put it in the printer and see what happens. So that's in there now. Let's spin it around. Now last time we went to this menu, the file menu, it gave us the option. So that's the test print, internal test print, and we're going to go to the USB file. There it is there. So Elfin Test 1, that was my file. Now it's usually the top one, not the one with the dash. We will hit confirm. Okay, so what that's done is that's dragged it over to the local file. So if I take that USB out, that's now loaded into the printers. We haven't printed red before on Protips, I don't think. I think it's time to get the red going. So as usual, a good shake of the resin. Now I don't know how long this has been sitting on the set for, so it could have been a while. Our resin will last up to 2 years officially, but longer if it's stored correctly in a cool and not too cold environment. Anything below -15 will damage the photo initiators, and anything sort of above 60 degrees is not good either. That's pretty hot, but just look, nice, cool place. I know a lot of guys use fridges, but with them turned off. So I better put the gloves on. Wow, I love how I do that. Obviously, whenever you're handling resin, guys, gloves are always a good idea. Let's pour the red resin in here. Just going to make sure that that's in place. That is, we can take this off if we want to get just slightly better access and pour it in. And so, oh, look at that. I'm going to put too much in, twist it like a little nice drop of red wine there. But what I am going to do, and I'm not going to muck around with this, is I'm going to get this light proof case on it quicker, sooner rather than later, because the room we're in does have a little bit of natural light coming in, and I know that with that lid that will stop it from curing on the surface. We don't want that. Without further ado, I think the best thing we can do now is hit this play button. Please check if the LCD screen and the resin tank are clean. Thank you very much for checking that. I confirm they are. Now we wait and we see what it does. So at the moment it's doing absolutely nothing. Okay guys, so we've just got this going. We had a bit of difficulty, I'll be honest, getting it going, and we couldn't work out why it wouldn't start, and it didn't give us any warnings or anything. And what I discovered it was, after resetting it a couple of times, was that these little things here, which lock the VAT in, which I was raving on about, saying how good they were, and it's clever, it makes a lot of sense. The print wouldn't start because they weren't locked in properly. Of course, they need to be locked in, and it's a good idea that it doesn't start, but they should also tell you why it's not starting. It wouldn't be a lot for the software to say the reason it's not starting is because the VAT's not locked in place. Anyway, we worked it out, and now we're printing. Okay guys, we've had lunch now and we're going to have a look to see if this actually printed. Let's keep our fingers crossed. It's always a bit of a nervous moment when we do this. Wow, there they are. Just as we had them. Everything looks there and intact. Hard to tell at this stage if it's under or over cured until I get them off this build plate and give them a clean in some resin away. we'll be able to tell a lot more, but straight away, it's actually pretty impressive, to be honest. Just I can tell, even covered in resin, everything is definitely there. There's no splitting or warping or peeling from the base. I'm actually impressed by that. That's a good first print. And that was me just having a stab in the dark at the time. I went for 7 seconds. Generally speaking, 7 is a good number with these types of printer. So let's clean it up and see what they really look like. So I've just gone and cleaned up this print, and to be honest, I'm really happy with it. We literally guessed the settings with the red rapid resin at 7 seconds, and it's come out really well. You can have a look at the detail is all there. There's nothing missing. There's no splitting on the edges. There's nothing that's filled in the lettering. That overhang bar is always a really, in my mind, a good test to see the quality of a printer. If that's printed nice and straight and flat, then that's a very good sign. Now, have a look at the last fin. If it is slightly bent over, now I probably did that when I was cleaning it and drying it. Now that is a super thin fin, that last one. And to be honest with you, most printers won't print that. So very rarely will I see that print. And the fact that's printed it's bent over is no big deal at all. 7 seconds seems to be spot on. Could go up and down, maybe a second here and there. That is one advantage of the Monocure resin. It is pretty easy to dial in. You can be a second here or there and it's still gonna work. I know some of these resins you need to be like at 7.3 seconds. Monocure resin's not like that. So, you pick a number and you go for it. And then you just look at a model like this and you say, okay, which way do I need to go? Do I need to go a second higher or a second lower? And if you guys are ever struggling with that, of course, just send me a message or an email from the website and I'm happy to help you dial your printer in. That's what we're here for. I'm impressed with this printer. The first thing that got me was the shape of it and the design and a few things that they did that was different. It's unique. If you do want to try a resin, what we'll do is we'll put a coupon code in the description below so you can get a good discount on our resin if you're going to buy this printer. Now we'll also put the settings in the description below, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. But as always guys, most importantly, remember to keep on 3D printing.